Good evening. I'm Dr. Fred Rouse, the Real Money Doctor, and it's currently just a few minutes before 7 o'clock on Monday, June the 8th. Today's daily recap of events that affect the way you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. And a question for today is, what about Tina? And I'll get to that in just a few minutes. For now, as we start every day since I got started doing this, is we want to touch base on the COVID cases. What's going on with that? Outside of all the things that are happening in the world today, okay, and over the last week or so, the COVID situation is what brought this all on, and there's still a lot going on with that. So right now, there's over 1,955,000 cases right now. That's up 61,000 cases, almost 62,000 cases since Friday. The deaths right now are at 110,000. 110,000 people die from COVID since this got started back in January. January for everybody else, March for the president. That's double the number that died in the entire Vietnam War. That was another 1,800 people that died over the weekend. New York has the first highest number of cases. They're currently at 378,000 cases right now. There are about 2,500 cases since Friday. Their deaths have increased a little bit, 3,400, basically up 181 over the weekend. So they're not obnoxious. It's coming down a little bit. But again, 181 people died in New York State in 2 days. And New Jersey still has the second highest cases at 164,000 cases. They're up 111,000 cases or so from the weekend. Their deaths are right now up to 12,217. So another 168 people have died in New Jersey. Now, the number 3 spot is Illinois. California at number 4. Massachusetts is the 5th number. 6th is Pennsylvania. 7th is Texas. Michigan is 8th. Florida is 9, and Maryland rounds out the top 10 of the highest number of cases that have been reported so far. Now, the death rates obviously are coming down in New Jersey and New York, but these are still big numbers. They seem great up until the fact where you're one of the people that died or it's one of your family. Okay, and again, people are still dying, and it's slowed down on either one of the coasts. It's picked up in some of the more central states at this point in time. And we've talked about the hot spots before, again, with the meat processors and things like that, where it's the main employer in a small town, and you have 20-30% of the employees testing positive with COVID. Okay, and it's not a happy situation now. All the states, all 50 states have reopened to some degree, and you can go out and about, and short of going into restaurants pretty much, and the malls for actual retail stuff, the food stores, Sam's, Costco's, Publix, those people are doing fine, almost like nothing goes on, up to the point where you look at the shelves, and the shelves, and that's going to continue for a while still. I don't know when that's going to change. Now, right now, there's still no treatment for COVID. The chances for a vaccine before the end of the year for widespread use are really, really slim. I mean, they're cranking out vaccines. They're trying to crank out vaccines, so they've got these numbers in place, but they still don't know whether they got tested or not, whether they're actually going to work or not. So there's still 2 groups of people out there. Okay, and it's important to understand where you fall in these 2 groups. We have those that have been directly affected by COVID, either because they or a family member or a friend or a coworker have had it, or they could be on the front lines as a doctor or nurse or EMS or person that's actually treating these things. And then you get the second group of people. The second group, they don't personally know someone who's had COVID. They don't socialize with people that work on the front lines, healthcare workers. And those two groups make up, at least in the US. And it's really important to understand the outlook of these two groups, okay, to understand the things that affect the way you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. Is based a lot on your personal beliefs. Now, you would expect that those two groups would exist, and there's nothing wrong with them. Each one have their own perspective on things. Now, you can listen to either one of them, and all set in their opinions, no problems at all. And as far as they know, unless they've done some introspection and have a broader view of things, as far as they know, their limited opinion of things is correct, and the only thing that makes any sense to them. So it's sort of a problem. And it's not only a problem, it's the way of the world. It's the natural occurrence of things. Now, last week, the nation responded, okay, to an 8-minute and 40-second video that demonstrated the death of George Floyd at the hands of 4 Minneapolis police officers. Now, when we left off on Friday, there were already a number of riots last week, okay, and also more than some interesting responses to demonstrations and protests. Now, over the weekend, okay, those protests and demonstrations continued, both here and across a number of European nations. The death of George Floyd has focused and mobilized a massive response to police violence against the citizens that they've been sworn to protect and serve, not only here, but in a lot of European nations also. Now, these protests around the country in the wake of the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery have reignited conversations about the role of police in society and the growing voice among some activists to call to defund the police. Okay, interesting catch term, and people are going to say, "Oh, okay." People are already saying it anyway. But defund the police. It sounds terrible. It sounds absolutely terrible. It doesn't mean take all their money away and throw them out in the street, but it does mean cutting back on things. So anyway, in Minneapolis, okay, where all this got started, a veto-proof majority of the city council committed to actually dismantling the actual police department itself, breaking with the mayor's changes not to break up the embattled police force. Now, the council president, Lisa Bender, said that it is clear that our system of policing is not keeping our communities safe. Our efforts at incremental reform have failed, period. Okay. She's on the front lines there. This all happened in her city. Okay, the entire city council now has got a veto-proof majority. They want to dismantle their police force. Now, in Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti, as much as $150 million that was part of a planned increase in the police budgets. Okay, and in New York City, Mayor Bill de Blasio also said on Sunday that the city would move funding from NYPD to youth initiatives and social services while trying to keep the city safe. So what does it actually mean to defund the police? In one sense, the movement to defund the police is really quite literal. Okay, it means actually taking funds away from the police forces across the country. And in many cases, a city or a county's legislatures allocate the money in the yearly budget to fund the police. Okay, the larger push, though, to defund the police is more about taking money away, and is more about trying to reallocate those funds to social programs. Okay, Patrisse Cullors, okay, co-founder of Black Lives Matter movement, said that it is not about taking money away from the police. It's about reinvesting those dollars back into Black communities that have been deeply devastated, okay, from the communities that themselves had never felt the impact of having their true resources. And so we have to reconsider what we're resourcing money to. Okay, I have an economy of punishment over an economy of care. That's what she said. Now, Christy Lopez, a Georgetown law professor, co-director of the school's innovative policing program, wrote that, and I quote, defunding the police means shrinking the scope of police responsibilities and shifting most of what the government does to keep us safe to entities that are really better equipped to meet that need, end quote. Now, why do you want to defund the police? Okay, proponents of defunding say that, policing a history of disproportionate harm to communities of color. Basically, police departments over 400 years of history of racism, okay, from law enforcement tracking down enslaved people who escaped in the South to enforcement of Jim Crow laws. That history has ingrained itself into law enforcement, said Isaac Bryan, the director of UCLA's Black Poverty Center. Now, Alex Vitale, a professor of sociology at Brooklyn College, who wrote a book, The End of Policing, okay, explained that there is a myth that police are politically neutral and enforce laws to benefit everyone equally. He went on to say that the reality is really order has never been entirely equitable. While we're not using police to manage slavery or colonialism today, we are using police to manage problems that our very unequal system has produced. The history of law enforcement results in Black people being killed by police at a disproportionate rate. A paper in 2016 in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine analyzed data from the National Violent Death Reporting System. That's a federally maintained database. It found that although the majority of victims of lethal force by police were primarily white, the fatality rate among Black people was 2.8 times higher than among white people. In cases where police used lethal force, Black victims were more likely to be unarmed than white or Hispanic victims. That's what the paper found. Now, Professor Vitale argued that one of the biggest problems with policing in recent decades is that law enforcement has played an expanding role in addressing societal problems, often responding to drug overdoses or mental health situations, and clear actual homeless encampments in cities. Vitale said that instead of addressing the root causes of these problems, police are just being used to criminalize these people. He went on to say, this is a perverse and unjust, so that it places police in completely untenable situation because they completely lack the tools to make this problem any better. In some cases, police officers themselves, their plan in society is way beyond the traditional scope of law enforcement should be. In 2016, Dallas Police Chief David Brown made headlines when he said, we're asking the cops to do too much in this country. That was Brown's comment during a news report. Okay, after the fatal shooting of 5 Dallas police officers. He said, every societal failure we put off onto cops. That's what he said. Now, speaking with the Philadelphia Inquirer on the topic of whether police are asked to do too much, okay, William Bratton, a former New York City police commissioner, okay, Boston police commissioner, and an LA police chief, 9/11 police departments, particularly in large cities, are expected to commit resources to preventing terrorism. We're expected now to deal with cybercrime and the opioid crisis. Police are being expected to be better trained to deal with emotionally disturbed people on the street. We're asking police officers in the 21st century to be almost doctors. Now, why are we not changing what do we ask police to do? Okay. It's a strange thing. It's easy to just shove it off on the cops. However, many detractors of the defund the police movement have asked whether police departments can be reformed without lessening their actual funding. This has been tried to varying degrees over the years. Okay. And you've seen over the last 10, 15 years or so, came out with body cameras. Okay. And they've done absolutely nothing more than actually show what's happened over and over again. Okay? the increased training has done nothing but to show us that law enforcement has a culture of law enforcement and is actually incapable of changing. That happens with an institution like that. You've got people in the ranks that have been there for years, and now you've got some progressive people who want to try and change things, but the people who've been there for years are now in the police unions, and the unions are pretty much controlling what goes on. And it's a vicious circle, and it's not changing. Now, detractors of the defunded police movement expressed concern that it would lead to increased crime and longer responses for 9/11 emergency calls. Proponents say the address other social needs would actually reduce crime by shifting money away from the police towards services that actually meet the needs. And they feel they'd be able to get a better place in the world that would address the issues before the actual crime starts. So there you have it. That's what went on over the weekend. Now, I do want to touch base on the unemployment situation. Those numbers came out Thursday, and they were really off the wall. Really, really good. And it didn't seem quite right. What a surprise. They weren't exactly right. And they started looking into what was going on. And yeah, there was some substantial improvement. Okay. But when they really started to dive into them, okay, and getting into those numbers, they weren't anywhere near as rosy as they looked on Thursday morning. However, there was a little bit of an improvement. The stock market had a rally on Friday, closed above 27,000, closed again above 27,000 today, picked up another 300-500 points somewhere in that range. Now, even though the U.S. had its worst downturn since the Great Depression, okay, now officially the National Bureau of Economic Research said that we had an actual recession. Okay, they're the ones who call the shots on that. Now, why the disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street? Okay. And we've tried to address it. It's hard to address because if you're on Main Street, life is different. If you're on Wall Street, almost like nothing's going on. It's sort of scary, which brings me to the question of today. Okay, what about now? Tina can really help answer that question. Now, Tina is not the sexy 20-year-old in the swimsuit commercials. She really isn't. Okay, Tina is also not the 60-year-old senior economist with horn-rimmed glasses working at a major DC think tank. No, Tina in this situation is actually an investment term. You might not have heard of it before. It means there is no alternative. TINA, there is no alternative. With the federal bank cutting interest rates basically to zero, low payrolls, and basically free money from the PPP, there is tons of liquidity out there. Now, you may not see it because there are really two economies out there. There's two different worlds. And if you're in one of them, you generally don't see or understand that there's actually another one that actually exists. Now, there's the 2% that control almost everything. They've got most of the wealth, they've got all the tax breaks. They've had it for years. Okay? And sitting on tons of cash, they just don't know what to do with it. So they put it in the market because for them, yeah, there is no alternative. To make 3 to 5% on several $1 million, you're doing okay. However, if you're part of the 98% that is not sitting on that type of money, you're still trying to figure out how you can retire at some point in time with a reasonable lifestyle and not need to be working well into your 80s if your health holds up that well. For you, okay, if you're at that point, and you might realize now that you have very, very few options, if any, other than working till the day you die, if your health holds up that well. And then maybe now you're at a point where you know you need to take control of your life, control of your money. And right now, maybe you want to take some action just to do that. Now, I'm a retired certified financial planner. I'm a multiple best-selling author. I wrote a book with Jack Canfield. International bestseller. They wrote another book with Tracy. Jack Canfield was the guy who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. Okay. Yeah. He trained a lot of people. Okay. Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy trained Jack Canfield. Wrote a book with Brian Tracy. Brian Tracy also trained Tony Robbins. Brian Tracy's an old-time guy. He's been around for years. And I was fortunate enough to be able to go write a book with him. Okay. And I've been working with people like that and small businesses with 0 to 6 employees for over. And I've shown them, and I can show you, how to get control back in your life and how to get the cash flow that you actually need to retire in just 3 to 5 years. You don't have to retire, but it gives you the option to retire in 3 to 5 years. Now, I can't help everyone. Again, I'm just a little old guinea guy here. No big deal. I want to help, but there's only one of me. I don't want a business. Okay, I don't mind helping people. I enjoy that, but I can't help everybody. Now, maybe I can help you. Go to my site, drrouseNow.com. You can go there. There's a 12-minute video that explains the program that I put together. If you're interested, schedule a call, and we can at least talk to see if I can actually help you or not. Now, it doesn't cost you anything. Okay. There's nothing to buy. You can't buy anything on the call. The only reason for the call is I want to see, do you really have a need or not? If you do, can I actually help you? And then if those two things are true, then do I think that we can mutually work together? And that's the only way I do these things. So again, I'm Dr. Fred Rouse, the Real Money Doctor. My only goal is to help you get, protect, and enjoy your money, your life, and your retirement. And I appreciate you spending some time with me tonight. I look forward to spending some time with you again tomorrow around 7 o'clock. I'll be posting this video on my YouTube channel, The Real Money Doctor, probably tomorrow morning sometime early. Like and share this video, and log into YouTube and like and share that video. Again, I appreciate spending time with you. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow around 7 o'clock. Thank you.